stand at the base of it, and you stop being a person with opinions. You become something small. The machine in front of you is a Liebherr R 9800. It weighs 800 metric tons. That is not a typo, and it is not rounded up for effect. 800 tons of steel, sitting on tracks wider than the hallway of your house, powered by 2 engines that together make close to 4,000 horsepower. The cab where the operator sits is not on the ground. To reach it, he climbs 5 flights of steel stairs bolted to the side of the machine, the same climb he makes every morning, in the dark, in the cold, before the shift bell. From up there, he looks down on haul trucks the size of 2-story homes and treats them like buckets under a tap. And the bucket on this thing swings into a wall of blasted copper ore and comes back out carrying close to 90 tons of rock in a single bite. 90 tons. That is more than 30 loaded pickup trucks, scooped up, lifted, and dropped into a waiting truck in one smooth motion that takes about half a minute. 3 of those bites, and the haul truck is full. It pulls away, another one rolls into place, and the machine never stops, and you feel it before you understand it. The ground under your boots shakes on a low frequency you sense in your chest more than your ears. The diesel note rolls off the pit walls and comes back a half-second late, like thunder that never quite ends. Dust hangs in the light. Somewhere above you, behind that glass, one person is running all of it, with 2 joysticks and a lifetime of feel in his hands. Now here is the part nobody standing in that pit likes to say out loud. This mine is American. The copper under it is American. The company that owns the pit, the trucks hauling out of it, the men on the payroll, all American. But the biggest, most capable digging machine on the property, the one everything else is built around, was not made in Illinois or Ohio or Wisconsin. It was designed and built by a private family company in a small town in southern Germany, a family that has never sold a single share to the public, a family most Americans have never heard of. Their name is on the side of the machine, in letters you can read from 100 yards away. And the story of how that name ended up towering over an American mine is the story of how the company that used to own this ground gave it away. To understand it, go back to 1949. Germany is rubble. The war is over, and whole cities have to be rebuilt from the ground up, but there is almost no money and almost no equipment to do it with. In a small town called Kirchdorf, near the Iller River, a builder named Hans Lieber has a problem every contractor around him has. He needs a crane, and the cranes that exist are heavy, expensive, and a nightmare to move between sites. So he builds his own. A mobile tower crane, light enough to tow, quick to set up, cheap enough that an ordinary construction firm could actually own one. It works. Everyone who sees it wants one. And almost by accident, a family firm is born in a country that has nothing left but the will to rebuild. Here is the decision that defined everything that came after. As the company grew, as it got into excavators and cranes and mining equipment and became a global name, the Lieber family refused to take it public. No stock listing, no outside shareholders demanding higher returns every 90 days. The family kept control, kept the profits inside the business, and poured them back into engineering. When they wanted to master a technology, they did not buy a competitor who already had it. They spent years, sometimes decades, learning to build it themselves. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, American industry was the most dominant force the world had ever seen. Caterpillar was not just a company, it was a promise. Yellow iron on every job site, from the interstate system to the Hoover Dam. When the world pictured a machine that could move a mountain, it pictured that yellow paint. American steel, American engines, American muscle, sold on the idea that bigger and simpler and tougher would always win. And for a long time, it did win. But the two companies were making very different bets. One was betting on mass, on scale, on a design philosophy that had conquered the world in the 1950s. The other was quietly betting on something harder to see and harder to build. Hydraulics, pressure and fluid and precision, and that bet was about to reshape the biggest holes humans have ever dug. Here is the engineering war, and it is worth understanding because it explains everything. For most of the 20th century, the biggest machines in any mine were rope, shovels, electric giants that ran on cable and winch. A drum would reel in a steel rope, and that rope would drag a bucket up through the rock. American companies built the best rope shovels on Earth: Bew, Cyrus, Marion, P, and H. Between them, those names dug the Panama Canal, stripped the coal fields of Appalachia, and built the crawler that carried the space shuttle to the launch pad. For 100 years, if you wanted to move the most dirt possible, you bought American cable and American steel. But rope has limits, and they are limits of physics. A cable can only pull. It cannot push, it cannot twist, it cannot place a bucket exactly where you want it. A rope shovel digs in an arc, like a man swinging a pickaxe, and it does the same motion whether the rock is soft or hard. A hydraulic shovel is a completely different animal. Instead of pulling a rope, it forces oil under enormous pressure into cylinders, and those cylinders move the bucket the way tendons move your hand. It can push down into the ground with the full weight of the machine behind it. It can curl the bucket, tilt it, crowd it forward into the rock with a force measured in the hundreds of thousands of pounds. The engineers call that breakout force, and hydraulics have it in a way cable never could. A rope shovel takes what the rock gives it. A hydraulic shovel takes what it wants. And when the rock is hard, blasted copper ore that fights every bucket, that difference is the whole game. That means a hydraulic shovel bites cleaner. It fills the bucket faster. It places every load into the truck with less spillage and less wasted motion. Shave a few seconds off a cycle that repeats thousands of times a day, and you have moved more rock for the same fuel and the same crew. In a business where profit is counted in tons per hour, seconds are money. And the machine doing it is the one we started with. 800 tons, curling close to 90 tons of ore out of a rock face in one motion, over and over, all day, in heat that would drop a man in minutes. I am not sure about you, but watching a machine lift that much in a single bite makes me wonder what else this country used to build and does not anymore. If that question sits with you the way it sits with me, subscribe, because we are going down that whole list. Because here is the uncomfortable part. When hydraulics finally won the world's biggest pits, the companies that won with them were not American. For decades, the heart of American mining machinery beat in a few specific towns. South Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Bulldozers built shovels and drag lines. Marion, Ohio, where Marion Power Shovel put its name on machines that dug two oceans together and rolled rockets to the pad. Milwaukee again, where a firm called Pauling and Harnish Fager, known to every miner simply as P and H, built electric shovels that ran for 40 years. These were union towns. A man could walk out of high school, walk into the shovel works, and spend his whole life building the largest machines on the planet. His father had done it. His son expected to. The knowledge lived in those buildings, in the hands of men who could hear a bad bearing from across the shop floor, men who knew by touch when a weld was right and when it needed to be cut out and done again. You cannot buy that in an afternoon. It takes generations to grow, and one boardroom decision to lose. And then, one acquisition at a time, it all changed hands. Caterpillar had actually stopped building its own large hydraulic mining shovels back in 2004. Its machines had fallen behind. So in 2011, Caterpillar did something that tells you exactly where the balance of power had gone. It spent roughly $8.5 billion to buy Bulldozers, and with it, the whole American rope shovel heritage. But here is the twist that stings. The biggest hydraulic shovel Caterpillar got out of that deal, the machine it now sells as its flagship, the 6090, was never American engineering at all. It was designed and built in Dortmund, Germany, by a company called Orenstein and Koppel. Caterpillar did not out-engineer the Germans. Caterpillar wrote a check and painted their machine yellow. Meanwhile, P&H, the pride of Milwaukee, ended up owned by Komatsu of Japan. So the two proudest names in American mining iron are now, underneath the paint, a German design and a Japanese parent. Stop and think about what that meant for the men on the ground. A pit crew that had run American steel their whole careers watched the new machines roll in, and the spec sheets came printed in metric, tons with an E, pressures in bar. Brand names they had to learn to pronounce. The machines were better, and nobody argued that. But better came from somewhere else now, and the towns that used to build the best were left holding the history and not the future. Today, the Lieber family is still private. 3 generations in, no stock ticker, no quarterly earnings call, no board of outside investors to answer to. They still build in southern Germany, in the same corner of the country where Hans Lieber welded that first crane out of necessity. And they still build some of the largest and most capable earth-moving machines that exist anywhere on Earth. Their excavators work the copper pits of Arizona, the oil sands of Canada, and the iron mines of Australia. They dig ground that Americans own, for companies headquartered in American cities, hauling out ore that feeds American industry. But when those companies need the single machine at the center of the whole operation, the one everything else depends on, more and more they do not call Illinois, they call Germany. There is no villain in this story. The Germans did not steal anything. They out-engineered, out-invested, and outlasted everyone else. Over 70 years, one improvement at a time, while a family that could have cashed out at any moment chose instead to keep building. That is not a crime. That is a lesson. And the lesson is uncomfortable, because America did build the machines that dug the Panama Canal and carried the space shuttle. That capability was real. It was not lost in a war, or a flood, or a disaster. It was sold, traded away one acquisition at a time by people looking at the next quarter instead of the next generation, until the biggest machine in an American mind came stamped with a foreign name, and almost nobody in charge seemed to mind. So the next time you see a photograph of one of these giants standing in an American pit, look closely at the name on the side. It will tell you something true about who builds the future now. And it will make you wonder what else we used to make, back when we still believed the biggest thing in the whole ought to be ours.